Uh, I don't believe it. You know that moment in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf falls and then that one little boy starts singing that song and then the whole fellowship like moves in slow motion screaming their grief. That's exactly what I feel right now with Kelsier. But I also don't believe it. I don't believe it. Not figuratively. Literally, I do not believe it. You know that moment in Lord of the Rings, another moment in Lord of the Rings, when the mouth of Sauron holds up the little chainmail of Frodo and Aragorn cuts his head off and says, I do not believe it. And then he gives his speech to the men. That's what I feel like I'm gearing up to do right now. That the I had so much that I wanted to talk about, and then I hit the final two chapters, and then all that was shattered because I have so much more that I want to talk about now. Oh gosh. Oh, I have this much left. I'm in the middle of my first Sanderlanche. And it's a good Sanderlanche. It's a real good Sanderlanche. Oh gosh, I literally just finished this 5 minutes ago. Ran in the shower real quick and came and started recording this video. Here is why I do not believe it. One small little line in this. Oh. Here it is. And we'll talk about this as soon as we hit chapter 34, which is what this is. I'm just going to be groaning and grunting this whole video because it's still so fresh. Oh. This is why I don't believe that Kelsier is dead. The Inquisitor pushed Kelsier back and pulled against the soldier, yanking itself in a skidding motion across the cobblestones. The Inquisitor hit a corpse and flipped backward, up to its feet. Its neck was red from Kelsier's grip, bits of flesh torn by his fingernails, but it still smiled. Kelsier pushed against the soldier, flipping himself up as well. To his side, he saw Renaud leaning against the cart. Kelsier caught the Kandra's eyes and nodded slightly. Renaud dropped to the ground with a sigh, axe in his back. Now, you could just take that to mean that they were nodding their goodbyes. I do not believe that. They were nodding their plan to each other. This was part of their plan. I saw Kelsier's death coming, and it was no less easy to deal with. As soon as he killed that Steel Inquisitor, before it even mentioned this in the text. Actually, to be honest, when he killed the Steel Inquisitor and all the Ska started surrounding him, I was like, oh man, we're going to end this part with like a victory. And then the next part's going to start with something terrible. Because this is like a one of the most, I don't know the word for it. I can't, early on in this video, I can't find a word for it. It's not a trope. It's one of the most common writing implements. I don't know exactly what I'm thinking of here. That as soon as the good stuff happens, as soon as you're on like a super, super high, then something happens and it betrays that and everything falls apart. Perfect example of that, if any of you have seen Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, that's the Red Wedding. Everything's going great. And then all of a sudden, it all goes to hell. As soon as I felt, along with Vin, this sense of dread and depression, all the Ska are crowding around him. They're like, this is like the revolt happening in live time. All of a sudden, Vin nearly lost her grip as the wave of depression hit her. I'm going, Kelsier's dead. He defeats this thing that he never thought he could defeat, and then all of a sudden, the Lord Ruler is going to kill him. The Lord Ruler, what the heck is up with this dude? Oh, gosh. Guys, freaking Elend. We learned what the heck the ninth medal is. I have theories on what the 11th medal is. Oh, gosh. Again, I'm just going to be grunting this whole video. Okay. I have a lot I want to talk about in these chapters, so we're just going to start booking it through, because otherwise this video is going to be 5 hours long. Because if I just talk and groan the whole entire time about like all these random thoughts that I have, then it's going to be long. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make it long. But I don't want to do that. I actually want to get through these because these are great chapters. Okay. Chapter 26. I actually didn't write a summary at the beginning of this chapter. That's a bummer. And it was a while ago. I feel like I read this. Hold on. Let me, what happens in the end of part 3? This wasn't a victory. Oh, yeah. Okay, so in chapter 26, I think Vin and Kelsier are essentially recovering. I don't think a lot happens in this chapter. I only have a few things underlined and a few notes about the things that are happening here. But is this where they witness? This was actually a good chapter. This is where they witness the executions. Okay. Interesting stuff. The executions are I mean, like, nobility and the Lord Ruler. I mean, like, this is part of his thing. He's always doing executions. But this is one of the lines that we get in this chapter. Not even for that, Kelsier said. I doubt the Lord Ruler knows or cares that most of those men were recruited from Luthadel. He probably assumes that it was another countryside rebellion. This is just a way of reminding everyone who's in control. The Lord Ruler's carriage rolled up a platform onto the central patio. The ominous vehicle pulled to a stop in the exact center of the square, but the Lord Ruler remained inside. One of my questions for that was, we didn't see the Lord Ruler. Like, this was actually a really great, in this part, gosh, I'm going to be all over the place. In this part, you have the executions, and the end of part 4, you have the execution essentially of Kelsier. Like, he stops this massive thing, and then all of a sudden, he's the one that's executed. You see the Lord Ruler, he's in his carriage, and he comes out of his carriage at the end of part 4. I mean, it's like good brooding right here. Like, I was always curious what the Lord Ruler looked like. And to me, he is 100% a Terraceman. Actually, they say he's immortal, so he could have something else. He could be a completely different entity in and of itself. Honestly, he could be God. I'm starting to think he's God. At the end of this part, he looks younger than Kelsier. But that leads me to thinking that he's a ferrochemist. But again, I don't know. This is like all over the place. Okay. But I like this writing implement that he's like kind of just sitting and brooding inside of his cart while these executions are happening. And then the aura that pulses from him of like just flat out depression is so sad. And it's like so intense this is a great bit of writing. I'm curious how they're going to make this in the movie. I need them to make this into a movie so bad. I could just see like a Dune version of this. This is like, to me, there's so many similarities to Dune, the whole Dune universe in this. With like Kelsier almost being like the Messiah character, like the Paul Atreides. Even the battle at the end, even the Inquisitors seem so much like this weird version of, what's their name? The bald people. The Harkonnens. It just seems like that. Even this, like, the last battle felt like that little battle in the second Dune in, like, the Colosseum kind of thing. It just all had, like, interesting similarities to it. Or I just see those. I feel like this movie would be great if they took it seriously. I don't want them to do like a kiddish version of this. Not that they will, but like I don't want them to make this like Chronicles of Narnia. This deserves like a Dune treatment. This deserves a much more serious tone to it. Even though the characters are fun and they have fun and it's like, you know, maybe more accessible writing, I definitely want this movie to become more like a Dune than I do it to be like a Chronicles of Narnia. I think that's probably unanimously agreed on. Here's another line. Eden is dead. He was our excuse. A way that we could do something good while he still pretended to be nothing more than that we pretended to be nothing more than thieves. Now that he's gone, you can give up if you want. Quit. But that won't change anything. The struggle will go on. Men will still die. You'll just be ignoring it. 4 more deaths. It's time to stop the charade, Kelsier said, staring at them each in turn. If we're going to do this now, we have to be upfront and honest with ourselves. We have to admit that this isn't about money. It's about stopping that. He pointed at the courtyard with its red fountains, a visible sign of the death for the thousands of Ska too far away to tell what was happening. I intend to continue to fight, Kelsier said quietly. I realize that some of you question my leadership. You think I've been building myself up too much with the Ska. You whispered that I'm making myself into another Lord Ruler. You think that my ego is more important to me than overthrowing the ruler or overthrowing the Empire. As he fell silent, Vin saw guilt in the eyes of Doxson and the others. Spook rejoined the group, still looking ill. 4 more deaths. You're wrong, Kelsier said softly. You have to trust me. You gave me your confidence when we began the plan, despite how dangerous things seemed. I still need that confidence, no matter how things appear, no matter how terrible the odds. We have to keep fighting. So this is, I mean, we'll get there when we get there at the end of this part, but part of me thinks that Kelsier planned his death. I don't know. I don't see how that is actually possible, because he almost seems surprised in his head when he sees the Steel Inquisitor. Maybe he was surprised at that. Maybe he was going to actually confront the Lord Ruler in this instance or something like that. But someone dying like that, I don't know now. Because someone dying like that, I would say sometimes can spark rebellions, but among the Ska, I don't think something like that would spark a rebellion. I think this is what's going to spark a rebellion, a resurrection, which I think is what the 11th medal is. I think the 11th medal keeps you resurrected, or resurrects you. Or maybe that's what gold does, and they don't really understand it, and Kelsier is hiding something about gold. There's so much in there. There's so much I don't know yet. And I don't think this book's going to fully resolve all my questions either, which I'm happy about. But I like that Sanderson said in some interview, and someone sent me this, that like each book it can be its own book. Even though it's like a trilogy, it could still be its own book. And so I'm curious how the heck this book is going to end. I don't think it's going to answer all my questions. I don't think I'm going to know what the 11th medal is. I don't think I'm going to know even the depth of the 9th medal, really. There's not a lot left. Were there like 50 pages left, or like something like, yeah, probably around 50, 60 pages left. No, Breeze, this isn't about boxings or glory. This is about war. A war we have been fighting for 1,000 years. A war I intend to end. You may go if you wish. You know I'll let any of you out. No questions asked. No repercussions exacted if you wish to go. However, he said, eyes growing hard, if you stay, you have to promise to stop questioning my authority. You can voice concerns about the job, but there will be no more whispered confidences or conferences about my leadership. If you stay, you follow me. Understood? Kelsier's a good leader. That's why I don't think he's gone. I feel like unless he just sacrificed his life there. And why was Kelsier just sitting there waiting? It seemed like he just, again, this is one of the reasons why I think he's not dead too, that he didn't even fight back. So I don't know what the heck is going on. There's something fishy happening with Renault. For sure, I don't think Renault is dead. I think Kelsier possibly could be dead. Right now, it's like 60-40. He's not dead in my head. I don't know what the heck is going on. That will probably mean smaller numbers. Oh, no, that's about just the garrison returning. So that was chapter 26. Okay, in chapter 27, Vin finally learns about the gold, the 9th metal. And this is one of the introductory little things we get. I think I finally discovered why Rashek resents me so much. He does not believe that an outsider such as I, a foreigner, could possibly be the hero of ages. He believes that I have somehow tricked the philosophers, that I wear the piercings of the hero unjustly. According to Rashek, only a terraceman of pure blood could have been chosen as the hero. Oddly, I find myself more determined because of his hatred. I must prove to him that I can perform this task. So again, if this is the Lord Ruler, then he just doesn't like terracemen. Maybe something else happened between him and Rashek, and he's just slaughtering all terracemen that he can. Maybe Rashek is the Lord Ruler. And it doesn't make sense why he would slaughter the terracemen, though. Maybe, again, he's using them to store up his own powers. Like, there's this weird, interesting moment. I think it was in this part where Vin takes the metal of Sazid that he stored up, and she tries to draw upon it, but she's not able to. And Sazid says something like, it's trying to draw from something that you can't really tap into. And it's like an interesting little note, but I think that she's going to be able to tap into that somehow. And I think the Lord Ruler might have been able to figure out how to tap into that. Like, if the Lord Ruler is Rashek and he's using these other terracemen as his vats, like brains in a vat that are giving him power. Because it seems like when he steps into this hall, the whole city, he has an aura around him. How does he do that unless he probably stores up a massive amount of other people's powers, and then he steps into this square, and then he emanates that. He's not doing this all the time. I don't think this is the Lord Ruler walks around and has this aura around him. And maybe he does. Maybe this is really what the 9th metal does or something like that. I don't know. Maybe this is what the 11th metal does. But golly, I think he's a terraceman or a ferrochemist. I keep mistaking those things. Also, the idea of what a Kandra is, we got to talk about that because that's weird. Another weird section. That's not possible, Vin, Kelsier said with a shake of his head. If it were, Inquisitors would be able to sense allomancy when there was a smoker nearby. If that were the case, don't you think they'd hunt down all the Ska-Mistings and kill them? Vin shrugged. You know the Lord Ruler is strong, Kelsier said, and you feel like you should still be able to sense him, so you do. Maybe he's right, she thought, picking off another bit of windowsill. Maybe he's an allomancer, or he's been an allomancer for far longer than I have, after all. But I felt something, didn't I? And the Inquisitor that nearly killed me, somehow he found me in the darkness and the rain. He must have sensed something. And later we kind of learned that she learns essentially from Marsh how to see the waves of or the pulses. Oh my gosh. I totally forgot this part that she kills Sean. That'll come later. Oh my gosh. But yeah. I think that's how that just makes sense to me that's how the Inquisitor found her. And it makes sense to me that this is how everything is really happening. There's something deeper here that maybe even Inquisitors don't fully understand. Inquisitors seem like they have almost deeper knowledge in Kelsier about some of this stuff and about their powers. But there's something deeper at work. Why are they obsessive over Vin? Why do they want Vin? And why don't they just go get her? To me, also, it seems like they should know where Clubs' shop was. If Elend just has some people tailing Valette, then how is the Lord Ruler not doing that? Is this just beneath him? Is pride going to be his downfall? Oh, man, I don't know. Kelsier also talks about his trainer. He says, although my trainer did the same thing about me, talking about unleashing upon the world, teaching about your allomancy. Part of me thinks his trainer might be Renaud. Again, Renaud just seems weird to me. Sorry, I just got a text. Renaud there's something weird about Renaud that I cannot put my finger on. I wish I could. Like, we're going to get to the end of this book and I'm going to just go, oh, of course it was that. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's going to be it's just going to come out of nowhere. So you steal someone else's storage metals, right? Vin said. Kelsier shook his head. Doesn't work. Ferrochemists can only access metal stores they themselves created. My note next to that is bummer. Because that poked a hole into my thing. But I think, again, the Lord Ruler has maybe figured out some way in order to supersede that or like go above that. Oh my gosh, Kelsier goes back to the pits of Hathin. Guys, my mind is all over the place. I literally read that like last night and I was going crazy. But the end of this part just threw everything off because that was so vitally important. Oh my gosh, so much happens in this section. Okay, Adium visions are more than hallucinations, Vin said. The shadows really do show us what people will do. True, Kelsier said. I don't know. Gold is strange, Vin. I don't think anybody understands it. My trainer, Gemmel, said that that a gold shadow was a person who didn't exist, but could have. A person you might have become, had you not made certain choices. Of course, Gemmel was a bit screwy, so I'm not sure how much I believe of what he said. There's a part of me in this section that believed, for a half second, I don't really think this is true, but that Reen, or that Vin is a twin. And maybe her sister that was killed, or maybe Reen, maybe she has like schizophrenia, and Reen is just like a figment of her imagination. I don't think that. I don't really think that. That's definitely not true. But part of me thought that for a second. But this is weird. A gold shadow was a person who didn't exist but could have. And it seems to be someone within yourself. So it doesn't seem like, this is just kind of some schizophrenia idea. It's like the potential use. But that's really all we get of gold. And I feel like gold has such an important role to play in this whole story. But I don't know what it is yet. Like, part of me thought that Kelsier really understood gold more than he actually did. And this was kind of like his secret plan. And maybe you can split yourself into two when you really tap into gold. But like, how have we not seen anybody who's a gold allomancer yet? Like, there have to be people who do that. It has to be like scattered over the text in like really subtle ways or something like that. I just don't know where it would be or what it really is. Like, part of me is like, okay, if he's splitting himself into two, maybe he did that and ran away. His real person ran away. And then this like other fake person that was him, but not him, took the blow for the Lord Ruler. I don't think it could be that. Because the Lord Ruler seems like he would see right through that. But gold and adium are complement metals. In one you can see the future and in the other you can see the past. But like shadows of the past. And I have no idea. Like, again, I'm almost with Kelsier. Like, it just seems like it wouldn't be that useful. But there's something deeper behind that. There's something there that I just don't understand yet. Like half of the other stuff in this book. Oh, this is a weird one. I won't, Kelsier promise. What about the Inquisitors? Did you find anything about them? Marsh stood quietly for a moment. They're strange, Kel. I don't know. They seem to have all of the allomantic powers, so I assume that they were once Mistborn. I can't find out much else about them, though I do know that they age. Really? Kelsier said with interest. So they're not immortal? No, Marsh said. The obligators say that Inquisitors change occasionally. The creatures are exceedingly long-lived, but they do eventually die of old age. New ones must be recruited from nobleman ranks. They're people, Kel. They've merely been changed. Whatever the heck that is. It seems like people get converted and like changed into a Steel Inquisitor. Like, do they just recruit Mistborns and like poke these things through their eyes, and then all of a sudden they're an Inquisitor? I don't know. But part of me thinks that like this is what's going to happen with Elend or something like that. Or like Lord Venture, like Straff Venture. Is he going to become, nah, he's too important. Or maybe the ADM's gone. Like Kelsier destroyed it. So maybe as punishment for that, they're going to have to become Inquisitors. Because one person died. There was an Inquisitor who died. So they need to replace that Inquisitor. And is it going to be Elend? Ooh, wow. I just came up with that theory off the top of my head. And that feels like it's going to be right. And then all of a sudden, Vin's going to have to try to like bring him back. Gosh, that would be dark. That would be so dark. Chapter 28. Oh. Okay, they go to the ball. Elend Venture controls Adium, they find out. And Justice has Vin followed. This wasn't like the most interesting chapter, but still, some interesting stuff that happened. Here we have, there were also, of course, the requisite pictures dedicated to the ascension. Vin could recognize these more easily now, and she was surprised to see references to things she had read in the logbook: the hills of emerald green, the steep mountains with faint wave-like lines coming from the tips, a deep, dark lake, and blackness, the deepness, a chaotic thing of destruction. He defeated it, Vin thought, but what was it? Perhaps the end of the logbook would reveal more. And it doesn't reveal more. I wish it did reveal more, but it doesn't. And again, this is one of the most pressing questions I have in my head too, is what is the deepness? And I don't even have a guess for that one. Like it's just so abstract for me. I'm not an abstract thinker. So anything that's abstract, I just lose my mind on. And the deepness right now is so abstract that I cannot even picture it or really think of what it is or what it could be. I can come up with some ridiculous guesses, but I don't know. The only thing that I'm thinking is the ash bounce kind of keep the deepness at bay, or maybe the deepness wasn't really that bad, and that's how Rashek or the Lord Ruler overthrew things. Or whoever, again, the hero of ages or whatever this is. I don't know. Whatever happened, Vin had to make sure that Venture didn't suffer the same fate as House Techiel. Their reputation destroyed, their finances unhinged. The Techiels had tried to pull out of the city, and this final show of weakness had been too much. Some of Techiel's nobility had been assassinated before they left. The rest had been found in the burned-out ruins of the canal boat, apparently hit by bandits. But Vin knew of no thieving bandits who would dare slaughter so many noblemen. I don't know if we got answers for that, but was that the Lord Ruler slaughtering them? Or was that Kelsier slaughtering them? I don't know if we got answers. If that's actually important, maybe I missed that. No, Kelsier still hadn't been able to discover which house was behind the murders. That seems ominous. I actually kind of forgot about that line. I don't know who would be behind that. Shan's house? The Lariel house? That's the most obvious one, but... I feel like there's something interesting there. Maybe the Lord Ruler did that. Weird. What's my note here? Ooh, I thought... Okay, so in this conversation that Elend had with Vin, I thought Vin was actually going to tell him about... Not the plan, but about... Maybe the... Not even the crew, like... Just like a little hint of what she was doing. She didn't, luckily, because I thought that would probably be disastrous. But this little conversation, I don't think you want to do that, Elend. Why? How much do you really know about me? Not as much as I'd like, he said. Not as much as you need to either, Vin said, looking up into his eyes. So tell me, he said. I can't, not right now. Elend stood for a moment, then nodded slightly and pulled away. He walked out into the balcony walkway. So, shall we go for a stroll then? Yes, Vin said, relieved, but a bit disappointed as well. It's for the best, Elend said. That alcove is absolutely terrible reading light. Don't you dare, Vin said, eyeing the book in his pocket as she joined him on the way. Okay, read when you're with someone else, not me. They're cute. But, I don't know. Another one. So, I don't know. Okay. Part of me also thinks that Elend could be an Allomancer, but an Allomancer for gold. And maybe they think Allomancers for gold are like waste, but maybe Elend has actually gained some power from being an Allomancer with gold. The only reason why I think that is because he's wearing gold. And everyone else wears like wood painted gold, but a lot of the nobility wear gold. So I don't know if that's the case either. I don't know, guys. I'm so ready to keep reading this. Like, I'm at a point, like, this is what this recording session feels like this to me. Like, I was in the middle of a Sanderlanche, and I had to get an ice axe and grab onto this piece of ice right now, and I'm like dangling on that right now, and the avalanche is still going by me, or it's like on pause for a quick second. And I have to try to think of all these theories, and all I want to do is keep reading. Last night was the first night where I actually had a hard time putting it down, where I had to go to bed. I like was not required, but I was like, I need to wake up in the morning. I need to do a lot of stuff to get some work done. And it was the first time where I was like, do I just skip sleep and finish the whole book? I know I wasn't going to do that, but then I made it a practical decision. I was like, okay, I'm going to read 2 chapters as soon as I wake up, and then I'm just going to come and record this. But then I just took my dog for a walk. He was laying over there looking at me. You all right, Wes? He's tired today. Took my dog for a walk, and then read these chapters, and now I'm here. Vin frowned, and Elend leaned closer, speaking almost in a whisper. My family mines the Lord Ruler's adium, Villette, he said. That's where our wealth comes from. In a way, our stability depends almost completely on the Lord Ruler's whims. He doesn't like to bother collecting the adium himself, but he gets very perturbed if the delivery schedule is disrupted. Find out more, Instinct told her. This is the secret. This is what Kelsier needs. Oh, Elend, Vin whispered. You shouldn't be telling me this. Elend shook his head. No, he said in a quieter voice. The Lord Ruler, he's just arrogant. I've read of warriors long ago who would run into battle without armor on, supposedly to prove how brave and strong they were. That's how this is, I think. Though admittedly on a far more subtle level. He wears metal to flaunt his power, to show how unfrightened, how unthreatened he is by anything we could do to him. Or he's a terroristman. But again, I think his pride is going to be his downfall, probably. He kind of seems like a prideful person. Like he just walks around, no armor, as a young man. I don't know. I mean, like, it's a typical thing. Like, pride is always the bad guy's downfall. That was like Voldemort. But this could be different. He turned and walked into the study. Oh, gosh, guys. What the heck is going on here? He turned and walked into the study. His father sat in his chair, speaking quietly with Tensoon, the Venture Kandra. Elend still wasn't used to the creature's most recent body, which had once belonged to a servant in the Hastings household. Elend shivered as it noticed him. It bowed, then retreated from the room. This gives me a small theory that Kandra can't die. Kandra are shapeshifters. And Renault is really Reen. I don't think that's true. I literally come up with a theory and then I say, I don't think I believe that. I think there's something else at play. Like, I don't know why, but I keep having it in my head that the Lord Ruler is Reshek, and that Hero of Ages, was it Kandra? And Lord Renault is the Hero of Ages. Renault is a Kandra too. So something weird is going on there. Maybe they really don't die. Maybe they just continually take the shape of something maybe when they die they have it's like reincarnation. Gosh, why did I blank on that word for a second? It's like reincarnation. When they die, they get to choose whatever form they want to come back as. So maybe Renault's going to come back as Kelsier. That'd be tragic, because it wouldn't be the real Kelsier. I don't think that. I feel like that'd be too unhinged. Okay, chapter 29. Also, Elend's dad sucks. I feel bad for Elend. But, yeah, his dad kind of sucks. I hope he kind of gets his own soon. Gets what's coming to him. Chapter 29. Vin talks to Kelsier, and there are a lot of foreshadowings in this chapter. That's my note. Chapter 29. Okay. Interesting words that are being used in this chapter. I did finally confront Reshek. This is in the journal. This is like the final, this was a really interesting thing. The final entry in the journal. It says, I did finally confront Reshek. He did not want to speak to me, of course, but I forced him. Unleashed. What does that word mean? He spoke at great length regarding his hatred of the Kelsier and my people. He thinks that we have turned his people into little more than slaves. He thinks that terracemen deserve far more. He keeps saying that his people should be dominant because of their supernatural powers. That makes me think that the Lord Ruler is Reshek, and that Reshek really overthrew this Hero of Ages here. Or the Kelsier. Maybe the Kelsier or the Kandra. 2 Ks? I don't know. And then another weird one. Because again, he's even talking about this language of dominant. The only thing that throws a wrench into this is, why does Reshek want to kill and hunt down all terracemen? Something happened in his life too. What will it be like when this is all over? I will be just an ordinary man again. So how is he gaining does he gain his powers temporarily? He's going to be an ordinary man again? Or is this just talking about like when everyone stops revering him? An unimportant man. It sounds nice, even more desirable than a warm sun and a windless sky. I am so tired of being the Hero of Ages, tired of entering cities to find either armed hostiles or fanatic adoration. I am tired of being loved and hated for what a bunch of old men say I will eventually do. So, here's what I think. If this is the last entry into the journal, this seems eerily reminiscent of something in Star Wars, when they misunderstood the prophecy. When the prophecy is foretelling of Anakin, essentially, who is going to... Sorry, that's annoying me. Who's going to overthrow and bring balance to the Force. And the Jedi all think that he's going to do that in that moment when he is confronted with Senator Palpatine right there. Spoiler alert. If any of you haven't seen Star Wars. But they don't realize that it's going to happen years and years later, when he balances the Force by throwing the Emperor into that little Death Star vat. I think the same is going to be true of here. I think the Hero of Ages is still around. Like, he has some kind of subsistence or some kind of like lesser form of life, and then someone found out a way to bring him back. Maybe Kelsier in the Pits of Hathsin found him or something like that. I don't know. Or they found his bones and they reanimated his bones. Maybe he's a Kandra of some kind. And because the prophecies, these prophets are never wrong, right? If you have a prophecy in a book, it can't be wrong. If he's supposed to, what is he? We don't really know what he's eventually supposed to do either. But to me, it seems like let's say he's eventually supposed to bring balance to the Force, or he's supposed to bring balance to the realm. If he's supposed to do that, then he has to still be around in some way or in some form. And then he has to like overthrow Reshek again, who again I think is Lord Ruler. But if this guy, the hero of ages, really is the Lord Ruler, maybe what he eventually was supposed to do was find out a way to keep the deepness at bay. And so maybe that's what he did with the ash mounts. And then maybe he just became bitter and frustrated and like annoyed that he had to do this. Again, maybe he's like I forgot, Desmond in Lost, who just keeps having to click that button. And maybe he's so annoyed that he has to keep doing that. Maybe that's what he has to do in the room every single time. Maybe he has to like confront the deepness or something like that. And so like every single time that he does that, he just has to keep clicking this button, and he's so annoyed that he keeps having to do that. So that's why he got so annoyed and so frustrated, and that's why he's grumpy all the time. We figured it out, guys. We solved the problem. It says, such are my fears as I scribble with an ice-crusted pen on the eve before the world is reborn. Rashek watches, hating me. The cavern lies above, pulsing. My fingers quiver, not from the cold. Tomorrow, it will end. I wrote in all caps. What? If only he'd put in more detail about what things look like, she thought, with annoyance. The Lord Ruler spent far too much time worrying, though admittedly she was beginning to feel an odd sort of familiarity with him through his words. She found it hard to associate the person in her mind with the dark creature that had caused so much death. What had occurred at the Well of Ascension? What could have changed him so drastically? She had to know. I wrote in all caps there too. Me too. I need to know why. Okay, so if the Lord Ruler is the hero of ages, what changed him? That's something that's going to come out of left field for what changed him. If the Lord Ruler is Rashek, it makes a bit more sense. And that he's like, maybe he threw the Lord Ruler, or maybe he threw the hero of ages into the deepness. And like that's where, or maybe he's like in a mist creature or something like that somewhere. And Kelsier found him, and that's Renault right now. That'd be wild. Because they all of a sudden just randomly introduced mist creatures, these mist wraiths, and all. Like they didn't do anything else with that. But mist wraiths seem to like take the shape of whatever they eat. They're like scavengers. So maybe they ate the hero of ages, and then he's in a mist wraith somewhere, and Kelsier found that mist wraith and cut it open, and then because maybe the hero of ages is a Kandra, I don't know, where are Kandra from? Kalenia. Maybe because of that, Lord Renault is now the hero of ages. That's the only real legitimate theory that I have. Other than that, I'm with Vin. I need to know why, what happened in the Lord Ruler's life if the Lord Ruler is the hero of ages. What happened in his life that made him like this? That would be interesting. Just like a deeper dive backstory. I mean, the next one is called the Well of Ascension, and the last one's called the Hero of Ages. So very curious about those two. I cannot wait to get into this. It's going to be very fun. Well, the Lord Ruler must have done what was necessary to save the world, for we are still here. I suppose, Vince said, but then he took the power for himself. That must have been what happened. He couldn't resist the temptation to use the power selflessly or selfishly. But why isn't there another entry? Why wouldn't he speak further of his accomplishments? Perhaps the power changed him too much, Aziz said. Or maybe he simply didn't feel the need to record anymore. He had accomplished his goal and had become immortal as a side benefit. Keeping a journal for one's posterity becomes somewhat redundant when one is going to live forever, I think. I disagree. Okay, here we go. I should have suspected this would be the result. Okay, so hold on. Okay, so Aziz says, wow, it just got dark. A cloud just went over the sun. Coming back. That was like the Lord Ruler's power. The Lord Ruler's here. I can feel the power, says. It's faint, far beyond my grasp, but I swear there's another reserve within me, one that only appears when I'm burning your metal. Sazid frowned. It's faint, you say. Like, you can see a shadow of the reserve, but can't access the power itself. Vin nodded. How do you know? That's what it feels like when you try to use another ferrochemist metals, mistress, Sazid said, sighing. I should have suspected this would be the result. You cannot access the power because it does not belong to you. Oh, Vin said. Do not be too disappointed, mistress. If Alamancers could steal strength from my people, it would have already been known. But it was a clever thought. He turned, pointing toward the mansion. The carriage has already arrived. We are late for the meeting, I think. Vin nodded, and they hurried their pace toward the mansion. I think it's been done. And I think they're going to find out how it's been done. I don't know how, but I don't know. And this is so this is where we learned Renault is a Kandra. Kelsier shook his head. It would be far too easy for an assassin to get in here. I'll have to make sure that Vin continues to sleep at Club's shop. He wasn't worried about Renault. The Kandra's nature was such that he didn't need to fear an assassin's blade. There you go. Renault's still alive. I actually completely forgot about that line until right now. So he doesn't need to fear an assassin's blade. If he's not fearing an assassin's blade, when he gets stabbed in the back, he's still alive. So Renault, to me, 100% is still alive. Which depressingly, to me, means that Kelsier is dead. I don't think you can have both. I'm just, from a writing perspective, I really hope that we have both. That'd be great. But I don't know. Oh, Marsh is dead too. That's so sad. I kind of hope Mare's alive somewhere. Oh, speaking of Mare. Mare, Kelsier thought. You always wanted a daughter you can teach to walk the line between noblewoman and thief. They would have liked each other. They both had a hidden streak of unconventionality. Perhaps, if his wife were still alive, she could have taught Vin about pretending to be a noblewoman. That even Sazid didn't know. Of course, if Mare were still alive, I wouldn't be doing any of this. I wouldn't dare. Look, Vin said, one of those Inquisitor dates is new. It's marked as yesterday. Then they slaughtered Theron's crew. Who is Mare? She was a noblewoman. Maybe she was a noblewoman that fell in love with Kelsier. And now the reverse is happening. Now Vin, who's a Ska, is falling in love with a noblewoman in Elend. There's just a lot of similarities between the two. It's like an interesting little thing. But Mare, again, is weird and interesting. I don't know what's happening with Mare. This is a section that I thought Kelsier is going to sacrifice himself. And this is why I still think maybe he did this as like a sacrificial nature when he died. He says this. Kelsier said, I need to understand what kept them going for so long, Says. What made them keep fighting. They were most determined, I think. But they didn't have any leaders, Kelsier said. The Lord Ruler had slaughtered their entire Valen religious council as part of his first conquest. Oh, they had leaders, Master Kelsier, Sazid said. Dead ones, true, but leaders nonetheless. Some men would say that their devotion didn't make sense, Kelsier said. The loss of the Valen leaders should have broken the people, not made them more determined to keep going. Sazid shook his head. Men are more resilient than that, I think. Our belief is strongest when it should be weakest. That is the nature of hope. And then Kelsier literally said that, I think to the Inquisitor or to the Lord Ruler, that he is hope. Great callbacks there. Good bits of writing. That was the moment that I wrote, Kelsier will sacrifice himself. Actually, I wrote, my note says Kelsier will fake sacrifice himself. I don't know, fake or real? That's the question. I don't know if he's going to fake sacrifice himself or real sacrifice himself. I don't know if Kelsier is dead now. I don't want to believe it. But now that I know Renault is really alive because he's a Kandra, I kind of think that Kelsier is actually dead. Which is devastating because I love Kelsier. Even though he sits backwards in his chair all the time and has some annoying tics like winking at people way too much. I still love Kelsier. He was a great character. But I'm not going to raise my glass to him dying yet because I don't think he's dead. Or I hope that he's not dead. But maybe he realizes the importance of the rebellion, and so maybe he's choosing to die here because he knows if he's dead, then it's going to affirm and cement the rebellion. All those Ska who saw him, are they going to get emboldened by what they saw and join in the rebellion? And is that more powerful than Kelsier? Chapter 30. It was the last ball, and Shan and Vin fight. What a fight. Great little fight here. This, I wrote a big N-O with 3 exclamation points in my notes. Vin said, turning to Sazid, I can't go, not when everyone else is staying. They all thought it was important to come and be seen at the last ball. And so I shouldn't leave until they start to. Sazid nodded. Very well. You go, Sazid. Hire a carriage and go tell Kel what we've learned. I'll stay for a little longer, then leave when it won't make House Renault look weak. I don't approve that I don't know that I approve, mistress. That was a moment where I knew something bad was going to happen. I think it was when she's alone and she's isolated. I'm like, oh man, something's going to hit the fan here. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, good little bit. Besides, child, Kliss added, turning to walk away. Didn't the boy just spurn you? What do you owe him? At that, Vin hesitated. She's right. What do I owe him? The answer came immediately. I love him. Aw, they're so cute. I love that Elend was like in the middle of this slaughter that was happening in the town square. He's going around going, Valette, where are you? I wrote a big what next to this line. Several did not. Some of the coins snapped away, pushed aside by invisible allomantic hands. 4 people remained standing. 2 of them wore mist cloaks. One of them was familiar. Shan Alariel. Vin didn't need to see the cloak to understand there was only one reason a woman as important as Shan would come on an assassination like this. She was a Mistborn. Part of me still, maybe I'm just delusional, part of me still thinks that Shan is still alive. I don't know why. But in book 1, how can you kill all these people? Part of me still just thinks that she's going to be alive and she's going to be a problem. But they have this great battle. Fantastic stuff happening in this. This was my note in the end of this chapter. I'm not going to say this out loud because this is a PG channel. But that was a great ending to that. Great ending to that chapter. So that was such a cool fight too. I'm very excited to see if they make this into a movie, how that fight would actually look and play out. Because it was like these arrows came, and it seemed to me like Vin dodged them, grabbed one, and then stabbed Shan with it right through the heart. And she did stab her right through the heart too, which that's kind of hard to come back to. But maybe these allomantic powers, this 11th metal, maybe this 11th metal is a resurrection metal. What is this 11th metal? I just want to know what this 11th metal is. Dying to know. Chapter 31 is kind of where it starts to get juicy. Actually, no, chapter 32 is kind of where it starts to get juicy. Vin comes back and Elend has his journey, I think I wrote. Yeah, this wasn't not a ton happened in this chapter, but Vin flinched slightly at Sazid's ministration. She was Mistborn. We fought. I won. You killed a fully trained Mistborn, Kelsier thought with shock. You practiced for barely 8 months. Is she dead? I think so. That seems like she's dead, but I don't know. What do you know about them, Kelsier asked. When's the last time you slept in an alley, shivering in the cold rain, listening to the beggars? Next time you cough with a sickness you knew would kill them. When's the last time you had to lie awake at night, terrified that one of the men in your crew would try to rape you? Have you ever knelt starving, wishing you had the courage to knife the crew member beside you just so you could take a crust of bread? Have you ever cowered before your brother as he beat you all the time? All the time feeling thankful because at least you had someone who paid attention to you? She fell silent, puffing slightly. The crew member staring at her. Don't talk to me about noblemen, Vin said. And don't say things about people you don't know. You're no ska. You're just noblemen without titles. She turned, stalking from the room. Kelsier watched her go, shocked hearing her footsteps on the stairs. He stood dumbfounded, feeling a surprised flush of ashamed guilt, and for once found himself without anything to say. How Vin has changed. What was once a very shy girl has now gotten lots of confidence where she's talking back to the crew, and I kind of love it. She's a great character. I would like a shy girl that gets confidence. Something very hot about that. For a moment, she thought she felt something very strange, a slow pulsing, like a far-off drum, unlike any elementic rhythm she'd felt before. But it wasn't coming from Kelsier. Oh. Maybe this is just simple and stupid. Maybe like she's sensing allomancy from way far off, and this is just like, a red herring to throw me completely off. But this is when Vin and Kelsier are having a discussion about how they're actually seeing, like how Vin can actually sense these things even when they're burning copper. And again, it says, for a moment, she thought she felt something very strange, a slow pulsing, like a far-off drum, unlike any elementic rhythm she'd felt before, but it wasn't coming from Kelsier. It was distant, far away. She focused harder, trying to pick out the direction it was coming from. But suddenly, as she focused harder, something else drew her attention. A more familiar rhythm, coming from Kelsier. It was faint, difficult to feel over the pulsing of her own heartbeat. It was a bold beat, and quick. She opened her eyes. Pewter, you're burning pewter. Kelsier blinked in surprise. Impossible again, he whispered. Again. What was that? What was that? Like a far-off drum, unlike any allomantic rhythm she'd felt before. But it wasn't coming from Kelsier. It was distant, far away. She focused harder, trying to pick out the direction it was coming from. I wish she was able to pick out the direction it was coming from. Is this from the Lord Ruler? Is this from someone else? Is this from Vin? Is this from... I don't know. She's seen gold? Guys. I'm going crazy. That line made me sit and think about it for like 15 minutes, and I have no answers for it. I don't know what it would be. It made me think of like there's a dyad in the Force, like Luke and Leia. Is Vin and Reen, are they some kind of dyad in the elementic powers that make them both stronger? I don't know what this other thing would be. Like the easy answer is probably the Lord Ruler, and like the Lord Ruler just feels like he's pulsing, but it's an elementic element that she feels like she's never seen before. So is the Lord Ruler using the 11th metal freely and easily? Is this the 9th metal that she's just not familiar with? Are there more elementic powers that we don't know, that we haven't seen yet? Way too many questions here. I just want answers. I cannot wait to finish this book. I'm like simultaneously really excited to finish this book, and I don't want to, because it's been a really fun journey. But that's pretty much what happened in that chapter. In 32, Kelsier is like my notes in this one. Kelsier is like Jesus Christ with a ska. Marsh dies, and the plan seems kicked into overdrive, and Kelsier goes to Hathsin. Freaking wild chapter. Absolutely wild chapter. What are we, 58 minutes in? Okay. We're kind of right on time. 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Right on schedule. Okay. Ivan trailed off, glancing down at the slick, ashen street as they walked. I don't know. And it's your fault, you know. I used to understand everything. Now it's all confused. Yes, we've messed you up right properly, Kelsier said with a smile. You don't seem bothered by the fact. Nope, Kelsier said. Not a bit. Here we are. That was kind of cute. I love the relationship between Kelsier and Vin. It is really cute. So this is when Kelsier really reminded me of like a Jesus Christ figure. Somewhat similar to like a Dune analogy, like a Paul Atreides. This is what it says. If you wish to repay me, then stand up a little straighter. Be a little less afraid. They can be beaten. By men like you, Lord Kelsier, a woman whispered, but not by us. You'd be surprised, Kelsier said as the crowd began to make their way, make way for parents bringing their children forward. It seemed like everyone in the room wanted their son to meet Kelsier personally. Vin watched with mixed feelings. The crew still had reservations regarding Kelsier's rising fame with the Ska, though they kept their word and remained silent. So again, to me, this feels a lot like a Jesus Christ kind of analogy, which means, and there's two other things that I want to talk about when we get there in the next chapter. But this was the beginning of when I was like, he seems to be like healing these, not like healing these people, but like, Jesus would walk around and like, people would want to touch his cloaks and like they would just want to be near him in order to be like healed or like, receive some of this power. And it seems like this is the same thing with Kelsier. Like it seems like these Ska respect him and love him so much that they just want to be around him to like absorb some of his powers or absorb some of his confidence or whatever it is, which makes me think that if Sanderson's going to carry this Jesus analogy even further, it means he's going to die and then be resurrected. So maybe my hope is coming back a little bit, but maybe that's too easy of a trope for Sanderson, especially because I think he's a Mormon. And so maybe like he just doesn't want to fall back on that analogy. I don't know though. But again, I think Kelsier is going to die. This is what my note in this section was: Kelsier is going to die, ... What was so wrong? He was, after all, a kind of father to the Ska. He was the noble lord they always should have had. Still, Vin couldn't help feeling uncomfortable as she watched the faintly illuminated, dirty faces of those Ska families, their eyes worshipful and reverent. Kelsier eventually bade the group farewell, telling them that he had an appointment. Vin and he left the cramped room, stepping out into the blessed, fresh air. Kelsier remained quiet as they traveled toward Marsh's new soothing station, though he did walk with a bit more of a spring in his step. Again, I think Kelsier, that was like a moment where I was like, Kelsier is definitely going to die here. He has this Jesus Christ thing going on, and all of a sudden he's dead. Devastating bit. Kelsier stumbled into the room. Vin followed, but she knew what she'd seen, or what she'd see. The corpse lay near the center of the chamber, flayed and dismembered, the head completely crushed. It was barely recognizable as human. The walls were sprayed red. Could one body really produce this much blood? It was exactly like before, in the basement of Kammen's lair, only with a single victim. Inquisitor, Vin whispered. Kelsier, heedless of the gore, stumbled to his knees beside Marsh's corpse. He raised a hand as if to touch the skinless body, but remained frozen there, stunned. That was a devastating bit. I was actually more broken up about Marsh's death than I thought it was going to be. I feel like I knew Marsh was going to die. Or maybe part of me thought that Kelsier was going to die and Marsh was going to replace him and have even different elementic powers. But this part was a little bit, it just came out of nowhere to me. Like I did not expect that at all. This was kind of sad though. And my note here says, no, this is a lie, ? Or is this a lie? I don't think it is. Now that we've kind of come to the end of part 4, I don't think it's a lie. I think it's true. I think Marsh is dead, and that is really sad to me. Because I don't want to think everyone who died isn't really dead. I said that with Shan. I'm going to say that with Marsh. I'm going to say that with Kelsier. I'm going to say that with Renault. None of these people are really dead. They're all going to come back in the next book. I just don't think that's realistic. I think tragically, I think Marsh is dead. He's the only character that I truly think is actually dead. And it's really sad because I really like Marsh. He was one of my faves. So sad. Doxson looked up at Kelsier, frowning. 2 days, Kel? What are you planning? Kelsier strode over to the door. He threw it open, letting in the mists, then glanced back at the crew with eyes as hard as any Inquisitor spikes. They hit me where it couldn't have hurt worse. I'm going to do likewise. I wrote, he is so intense. Also, we learn where they get the scars. They have to reach their hands into these like little holes with crystals, and then when they pull it out, that's when they got all these scars up their forearm and up their arm. That was an interesting section. I didn't know what the heck those scars were. Part of me thought that those scars were going to be like they take out bones or something like that. Like there's I don't know if it was this section or another section that it kind of mentioned something like that, where it's like almost like a reanimated bones. Like I think the section was like, you don't know what they could do with bones. I butchered that. There's something in there that in this book that talked about bones real quick. And to me, I was like, oh, maybe they do that with the survivors of Hassan. Maybe like they, in order to try to eradicate them, they take out their bones. And I was like, maybe Kelsier really isn't Kelsier. He's like, another person's bones wrapped up in skin. But now we know where these things come from. These scars come from. That's intense. That whole like little section was pretty intense. Poor Waylon. Man, the pits of Hassan are terrifying. I want to know like what people picture as the pits of Hassan. I'm not gonna look it up because again I don't want any like spoilers. I'm gonna ask actually in the Discord. Also, join the Discord if you want to just hear me chat. I give a few extra thoughts on there, but some people are reading with it. Some people are reading through it for the first time as well, and like there's like I think 2 or 3 people who are reading it, and they're already almost finished, and they're like, one I think is really loving the journey. Really loving the journey. Okay, 33. They're essentially this is when, it all starts going wild. I actually have not a lot of notes in this because this is a deeply actioned chapter. But they essentially they're going to these executions that are going to happen, and these executions are like a fake. They're going to go try to release prisoners, and when they go to release the prisoners, there's this Inquisitor, the Inquisitor that hunted them down before. And that Inquisitor is just like ready to fight, ready to do battle. The Inquisitor smiled, and Kelsier heard footsteps approaching down the alleyways. Dozens, hundreds. At first, I thought that was dozens and hundreds of Inquisitors, and that I almost pooped my pants right there. But it wasn't. It was just dozens and hundreds of soldiers and one Inquisitor. This is a really great image. It was like all these Inquisitors were fighting and they were doing battle, and then all of a sudden Kelsier and this Inquisitor were fighting and doing battle, and then all these people kind of just started forming like a circle around them, or all these soldiers. Kelsier was pushing off their armor. Really cool image. And this is like right before the fight. There's like, trying to release prisoners. They've caught they've caught Renault and Spook. Spook is becoming one of my favorite characters. I really like Spook. He's kind of cute. I think he's a great character. I love that he's a great tin eye. That makes me happy. Like he's like a little awkward, doesn't know how to talk to ladies, but this kid is good at what he does. Sometimes I kind of hope I wish like Vin would shack up with Spook. I like Spook. Kelsier flicked the cords off and downed both vials at once, then tossed them aside. Metals flared in his chest, burning alongside his rage. His brother dead, his wife dead, family, friends, and heroes all dead. You push me to seek revenge, he thought. Well, you shall have it. Kelsier stopped a few feet in front of the Inquisitor, fists clenched. He flared his steel in a massive push. Around him, people were thrown back by their metal as they were struck by the awesome invisible wave of power. The square, packed with Imperial soldiers, prisoners, and rebels, opened up in a pocket around Kelsier and the Inquisitor. Let's do it then, Kelsier said. Good fight. What a fight going on here. The final chapter, chapter 34. Great freaking chapter. I never wanted to be feared. If I regret one thing, it is the fear I have caused. Fear is the tool of tyrants. Unfortunately, when the fate of the world is in question, you use whatever tools are available. Which maybe seems to me like the Hero of Ages actually is the Lord Ruler. Again, I wish I knew. Guys, I am so all over the place with that. Again, here we go. The Inquisitor appeared, leaping out from behind a pile of soldiers. It landed on top of the cage, shaking the entire structure. An obsidian axe grasped in each claw-like hand. The creature met Kelsier's eyes and smiled, then dropped from the top of the cage and buried an axe in Renault's back. The Kandra jerked, eyes wide opening. The Inquisitor turned toward Elend next. Kelsier wasn't certain if the creature recognized the boy. Perhaps the Inquisitor thought Elend to be a member of the Renault family. Perhaps he didn't care. And this is when Kelsier saves Elend, which was actually really interesting. But I wrote N-O next to that. And again, we've talked about my theories on that. I don't think Renault is dead. Renault has to be alive. He's a Kandra. And they make mention of that he is a Kandra. I think you're supposed to forget that a Kandra can almost like come back to life, like that little section before with Elend and his father. They had a Kandra. Why do you need a Kandra? I guess a Kandra is just a spy. It can kind of take the form of anything, which again makes me think, who the heck is Renault? If he's a Kandra and he's just taking the form of this, who was he before this? Guesses are Reen. Mare. Could it be Mare? No, it's not Mare. The Hero of Ages. Maybe the Hero of Ages. I don't know. Kelsier pushed against the soldier, flipping himself up as well. To his side, he saw Renault leaning against the cart. Kelsier caught the Kandra's eyes and nodded slightly. Renault dropped to the ground with a sigh, axe in his back. What is that nod? That nod is going to drive me crazy. And I don't think that nod's going to get answered in this book. I think maybe at the end of this book, we're going to know that Renault is still alive. I think we might get confirmation that Kelsier is actually dead. But we're not going to know what that nod is. I don't think until like the third book. That's my guess. To me, that seems eerily similar of like in Harry Potter, when in the fourth book, when Dumbledore learns about the blood that Voldemort took, which was Harry's blood, said there was a golden gleam of victory in his eyes or something like that. Something along those lines. To me, that seems like this. Where this is like this nod. To his side, he saw Renault leaning against a cart. Kelsier caught the Kandra's eyes and nodded slightly. To me, that's like, okay, they look at each other. Nod. It doesn't seem like a nod of like, we're going to die together. It seems like a nod of, we both know the plan and you know how things need to go. So again, Renault seems like he's significantly more powerful. Oh, how my emotions flared in this. In this, my note for this section was, I thought he was going to die, exclamation point. I'm glad you talked me into this, he said quietly. Then he swung a two-handed blow, slamming the axe head through the Inquisitor's neck and into the wood behind. The Inquisitor's body slumped to the cobblestones. The head remained where it was, staring out with its eerie, tattooed, unnatural gaze, pinned to the wood by its own spikes. And then the chanting began. The ska in the surrounding streets began to shout his name. The soldiers looked around, realizing with horror that they were surrounded. The peasants began to press in, and Kelsier could feel their anger and hope. And my note here is, yes, in all caps and exclamation points. And then the cruelty of this is this. It's at the end of the page here. And what you have to do is you flip the page, and then all of a sudden, the Lord Ruler had arrived. Son of a gun. This freaking guy. Okay, so essentially this is what happens, and you guys all know. The Lord Ruler steps out of his carriage. Everyone is like, oh, he's like a young guy. But everyone's like, the aura is making them all depressed. He walks. Ham and his crew come, or Ham or Dachshund? I think Ham. Hold on. Ham. Ham. Hold on. I gotta sneeze. Why can't I see a name? Oh, yeah, I didn't see the name yet, but for my wife, the thug said, holding up a spear and charging. Oh, Ham and his thugs. Okay. Vin turned back to the square. The carriage rolled to a stop. But, she said softly, the 11th medal, did he bring it? He must have, which is why I think he did bring it, and he took the 11th medal. And maybe the 11th medal is something that resurrects you. The reason why I think this is because of the object used to stab Kelsier. So Ham comes with a spear, stabs the Lord Ruler with a spear. Someone comes up behind, stabs the Lord Ruler with another spear. He has two spears coming out of him. The Lord Ruler stopped a few feet away, one of the spears nearly touching Kelsier's chest. Black ash fell lightly around the two men, bits curling and blowing in the faint wind. The square felt horribly silent. Even the Inquisitor stopped his gruesome work. Vin leaned forward, clinging precariously to the rough brickwork. Do something, Kelsier. Use the metal. The Lord Ruler glanced at the Inquisitor that Kelsier had killed. Those are very hard to replace. His accented voice carried easily to Vin's tin-enhanced ears. Even from a distance, she could see Kelsier smile. I killed you once. Again, Kelsier's smiling here. He's not really responding at all. He's just smiling. I killed you once, the Lord Ruler said, turning his back to Kelsier. You tried, Kelsier replied, his voice loud and firm, carrying across the square. But you can't kill me, Lord Tyrant. I represent the thing that you've never been able to kill, no matter how hard you try. I am hope. Again, Kelsier knew he had to die earlier on. This is why, to me, it doesn't seem like he's dead. The Lord Ruler snorted it in disdain. He raised a casual arm, then backhanded Kelsier with a blow so powerful that Vin could hear the crack resound through the square. Kelsier lurched and spun, spraying blood as he fell. No, Vin screamed. The Lord Ruler ripped one of the spears from his own body, then slammed it down through Kelsier's chest. Let the executions begin, he said, turning toward his carriage and ripping out the second spear, then tossing it aside. First of all, what the heck is the Lord Ruler? If a spear thrust doesn't bother him, I mean, we knew that before. Like, a spear thrust didn't bother him because it says that, like, he's had his head chopped off and he just finds it more of an annoyance than anything else. So what the heck is this creature? Maybe he's not a Terraceman, because can a Terraceman do that? But part of me thinks the reason that Kelsier is dead because he was stabbed with a spear. JC, Jesus Christ, was stabbed with a spear and then resurrected. You know, I think this is maybe that trope of he gets stabbed with a spear. Maybe that's Brandon Sanderson and his religion and his faith pointing out the fact that Kelsier's still alive. Look at the instrument he was stabbed with. Out of every single instrument, like, I don't think we've ever seen a spear before in this section. Maybe we have. We've seen some swords. We've seen some daggers. We've seen some axes. Maybe all the soldiers carry spears. But he gets shanked with a spear. The Lord Ruler takes it out and then puts it right through Kelsier. Why choose the spear as an implement for that? I mean, it makes sense. A spear is just something like, you can just stab through and then he just grabs it out. But why not a sword? Why not an arrow or something like that? To me, the spear seems to have significance. But it says this at the end. He didn't move. Vin had trouble seeing through the tears. It's impossible. He always said we aren't invincible. But that meant me, not him, not Kelsier. He was invincible. He should have been. Someone grabbed her and she squirmed, crying out. Time to go, kid, Ham said. His eyes examined Kelsier one last time, as if to quash any lingering hopes that his friend's broken body still retained a spark of life. Then he towed her away. Vin continued to struggle weakly, but she was growing numb. In the back of her mind, she heard Reen's voice. See, I told you he would leave. I warned you. I promised you. And that's the end of part 4. So I'm pumped to just keep reading. My theories for the end of this book. Number 1, we're going to find out that Renault is still alive. That one's an easy one. Renault, to me, is 100% still alive. He's a Kandra. Don't know what's happening there. I am about 60 to 40% thinking that Kelsier is dead versus alive. 60% of me thinks that he actually is dead because I think he knows and he maybe sacrificed himself knowing full well that his death was required in order to spark the rebellion. And that was like a noble sacrifice, that he sacrificed himself. Part of me thinks that he's alive for some of the reasons that I talked about. That 40% of me still thinks that he's alive. Maybe it's like 55% versus 45%. 45% of me maybe thinks he's still alive because of the Jesus Christ analogies in Brandon Sanderson. I don't know if he would go into that or maybe just shy away from that. But part of me thinks that. So I hope at the end of this book, like I'm hoping we get a little bit of a section where we don't see Kelsier. It's like a Gandalf where we don't know if he's alive or dead. And then maybe somewhere in the next book or the end of this book, Kelsier comes back. I would be very, very happy with that. Although I don't think that's the case again, because Sanderson has said that this book is kind of like, it can be its own individual book. So I'm thinking maybe that's not the case and that this book finishes in some, I don't know if it's a victorious way or a sad way. Part of me thinks that this book is going to happen, that the end of this is going to happen victoriously. Maybe they will get control of the capital, but I don't think they're going to kill the Lord Ruler yet. I think the Lord Ruler is definitely still going to be alive by the end of this book. I don't know if any of the crew are going to die. I hope no one in the crew dies by the end of this book. If I were to put a bet on someone who would die, I would say Ham. I really like him. And again, when he charged and he said "for my wife," that made my heart break a little bit. But I don't know. I think this 11th medal could potentially, if my theory on Kelsier coming back is right, this 11th medal is a resurrection medal. That's my guess on that. But I still don't have any idea. If it's not a resurrection medal, I have no idea what it would be. Like, no idea what it would be. And the last thing I'll say is I think gold plays a significantly more important role than any of us know. Any of us. like you guys all who have read this before, you probably all know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I think at this moment that gold plays a really significant role. And maybe by the end of this book that she looks back and looks through the gold and like she's able to tap into some other power that it has. Maybe Elend is a gold allomancer. And Elend teaches her all about gold or something like that. Elend maybe seems like that. He seems like he's likes the knowledge side of things. So that could be true. But I don't know. Super pumped to keep reading. Like that's what I got left. And I might read it all tonight. I can't believe he died. I don't believe it, but I kind of do believe it. Those are all my thoughts. That's all I got right now. I'm just pumped to read. I'm to keep reading. If you want, make sure you join our Discord because, again, that's where I share a little bit of extra thoughts, and that's where other people are reading, so you can kind of vicariously live through other people who are reading this for the first time. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. No spoilers. I should have said that at the beginning. No spoilers throughout this whole thing. But some of you who like know this before, I don't read all the comments because I just quickly like them, so they just get out of my feed. But some of you who respect the no spoiler thing, I love reading your comments. It's just fun. Even like when you guys are like RAFO, read and find out. That makes me so happy. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for following along, and I'll probably see you in a few days when I finish this book and we have a deep dive on this book. I'm pretty pumped. I'm probably going to finish it this weekend, actually. It is Friday right now. I don't know if I'll be able to read some tonight. And then I think the rest of this weekend, I have a little bit of time. I'm just going to squeeze as much time as I can and probably just carry this everywhere I go and read it as much as I can. It's very good. I love this book. It's a great book so far. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye.